The phone call came at 2 a.m. My brother Marcus's voice was slurred, desperate, and I could hear his wife Sophia crying in the background. They'd been evicted from their apartment, he said, and had nowhere to go. Could they crash at my place for a few days? Just until they figured things out? I should have said no. Looking back, every instinct in my body was screaming at me to hang up, to protect myself from what was coming. But he was my brother. My little brother who I'd protected from bullies in school, who I'd helped with homework, who I'd always looked out for even when he didn't deserve it. So I said yes, just for a few days. Those few days turned into 5 years. 5 years of my life that I'll never get back. 5 years that ended with a betrayal so profound, it still makes my hands shake when I think about it. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how my own family tried to steal everything I'd worked for. I was 32 when Marcus called that night. I'd just closed on a duplex in a decent neighborhood, my first real investment property. It needed work, a lot of work, but I had a plan. Live in one unit while slowly renovating the other, then rent it out for passive income. It was modest, but it was mine. Every penny of the down payment had come from years of overtime shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nurse. Every sacrifice, every skipped vacation, every generic brand grocery item, it all led to that moment of signing the papers and holding the keys to my future. Marcus showed up the next morning with Sophia and their 2 suitcases. He looked rough, unshaven, his eyes bloodshot. Sophia wouldn't meet my gaze, just clutched her purse and mumbled a thank you. They were both 30, old enough to have their lives together, but here they were on my doorstep, like lost children. It's just temporary, Marcus assured me as I showed them to the vacant unit. We had some bad luck with the landlord. Sophia lost her job, but we're getting back on our feet. I've got some leads. The unit was bare bones, functioning but dated. Olive green carpet from the 70s, wood paneling on the walls, a kitchen, with appliances that probably came with the original construction. But it was clean, it was safe, and it was shelter. They seemed grateful, and I felt good about helping. Family helps family, right? The first few months were fine. Marcus found work at a warehouse. Sophia picked up shifts at a restaurant. They kept to themselves mostly, and I focused on my own unit, slowly updating the bathroom, refinishing the hardwood floors on weekends. We'd have dinner together sometimes, and it felt like maybe this arrangement could work. Maybe this was the universe's way of bringing us closer together after years of drifting apart. But then the excuses started. The warehouse cut Marcus's hours. Sophia's tips were down. They needed just 1 more month to get caught up, then another. I watched the pattern emerge. Every time they seemed close to having enough saved to move out, something would happen. A car repair, a medical bill, always something. I feel terrible about this, Marcus would say, not quite meeting my eyes. You know I'm good for it. Once we're back on our feet, I'll pay you back every penny of rent. I never asked for rent. That was my first mistake. I told myself I was being a good sister, that family doesn't charge family in times of need. But need has a way of becoming comfort, and comfort has a way of becoming entitlement. By the end of the first year, I noticed changes. New furniture appeared in their unit. Nothing fancy, they said, just some stuff from garage sales. Sophia's nails were always freshly done. Marcus had a new phone. Small things, but they added up to a picture I didn't want to see. They weren't struggling anymore. They were comfortable. They were settling in. Maybe we should talk about making this more official, I suggested one evening over dinner. You could pay a small amount of rent, way below market rate, just something to help with the property taxes and maintenance. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Sophia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Marcus's jaw tightened. I thought family helped family, he said quietly. I didn't realize you were keeping a tab. I'm not keeping a tab. I'm just saying that now that you're both working steadily. So, you want to profit off your own brother's misfortune? That's not what I'm saying at all. But the damage was done. The easy dinners stopped. They started avoiding me, coming and going at odd hours. When we did cross paths, the conversations were stilted, formal. I'd become the enemy simply by suggesting they contribute to the roof over their heads. I threw myself into my work and my renovations. My unit was coming along beautifully. Updated kitchen, refinished floors, new windows that let in streams of morning light. I'd come home exhausted from 12-hour shifts and still find energy to sand, paint, tile. This property was my future, my security. Every improvement was an investment in myself. 2 years passed, then 3. I stopped bringing up rent. It wasn't worth the fight, and honestly, I was making decent money at the hospital. I told myself that when they finally moved out, I'd renovate their unit and rent it for market rate. The neighborhood was gentrifying. Values were going up. I could wait, but something nagged at me. They'd stopped complaining about money entirely. Sophia was driving a newer car. Marcus had quit the warehouse and was doing some kind of consulting, work from home. They took a vacation to Cancun, posted the pictures all over social media, sunset dinners, couples massages, parasailing. Must be nice, I thought bitterly, when you don't have to pay rent. The 4th year brought a new development. I started dating someone, Ryan, a physical therapist from the hospital. Kind, funny, ambitious. He owned a condo across town, and after 6 months, we started talking about moving in together, about the future, about maybe selling my duplex and pooling our resources for something bigger. "You have tenants in the other unit, right?" Ryan asked one evening as we looked at real estate listings on his laptop. "What kind of rental income are you getting?" My silence told him everything. "Elena, please tell me your brother is paying rent." "It's complicated." "No, it's not. It's business. That property is your investment. You can't afford to give away half of it for free." He was right, of course. But knowing something and doing something about it are 2 different things. The conversation with Marcus would be brutal. The family fallout would be worse. My mother, who always favored Marcus, would never forgive me. I'd be the selfish sister who put money before blood. But Ryan's words planted a seed. I started looking at my situation differently. I wasn't helping anymore. I was enabling, and I was sacrificing my own financial future in the process. Year 5 arrived with a decision. Ryan and I were getting serious. We'd found a house we both loved, but I needed to either sell the duplex or start generating rental income to qualify for the mortgage. The free ride had to end. I practiced the conversation 100 times in my head. I'd be firm but fair. Give them 3 months to find a new place. Offer to help them look, even provide a reference despite the unconventional arrangement. It was more than generous, considering. But I never got the chance to have that conversation. Because 2 weeks before I planned to talk to them, I came home early from a shift to find something that stopped me cold. There was a contractor's van in the Yanti driveway. Not unusual in our neighborhood, but it was parked in front of Marcus's unit. I could hear power tools inside. My first thought was that something had broken, maybe a plumbing issue or electrical problem. Marcus should have called me, but whatever. I'd deal with it. I knocked on their door. No answer, but the sound of drilling continued. I used my key. What I saw inside made my knees weak. The entire unit had been transformed. Gone were the wood, paneling, and old carpet. In their place were smooth, painted walls and what looked like expensive hardwood floors. The kitchen had been completely remodeled. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, custom cabinets. A contractor was installing recessed lighting in the ceiling. "What the hell is going on?" I managed to ask. The contractor looked confused. "You're not Mrs. Chen? We're almost done with the master bathroom. Just need to install the rainfall shower." "I'm the owner of this property." "Who authorized this work?" Now he looked worried. "Mr. Chen said he owned the place. We've been working on this for 2 months. The permits are all in his name." 2 months. They'd been secretly renovating my property for 2 months. without my knowledge, without my permission. Permits in Marcus's name for a property he didn't own. I stumbled through the rest of the unit in a daze. Every room had been touched. Premium fixtures, high-end finishes, professional work. This wasn't a small upgrade. This was a complete transformation. The contractor's estimate, when I finally got him to show me the paperwork, was nearly $100,000. $100,000. My hands were shaking as I called Ryan, then my lawyer. Then I sat in my car and cried. Not pretty tears, but ugly, gulping sobs that came from somewhere deep and wounded. The betrayal felt like a physical blow, my own brother, my own blood. They came home that evening to find me sitting on their new leather couch, the contractor long gone, my lawyer on speakerphone. "Elena," Sophia gasped. "You're home early." "Sit down," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "We need to talk." Marcus tried to play it cool at first. "We wanted to surprise you. Thank you for letting us stay here. We wanted to give back, improve your property. Without my permission? With permits in your name? We didn't want to bother you. You work so hard." "Cut the crap, Marcus." Sophia jumped in then, her voice honey-sweet. "We thought you'd be happy. We've increased your property value significantly. When you sell—" "When I sell?" I interrupted. "And who's paying for these renovations?" That's when their story began to unravel. In their minds, they'd done me a favor. They'd improved my property, increased its value. The least I could do was cover the cost of materials and labor. After all, they'd lived there for 5 years, treated it like their own home. Didn't that count for something? "You want me to pay for unauthorized renovations on my own property?" I asked slowly, making sure I understood. "Renovations you did, without my knowledge or consent?" "We're family," Marcus said, falling back on the old manipulation. "We thought you'd be grateful." "Grateful? You've been living here rent-free for 5 years. That's over $120,000 in market rate rent I've forgone. And now you want me to pay for your renovations too?" "That's not fair." Sophia's mask finally slipped. "We've been taking care of this place. We've made it beautiful. You should be thanking us." My lawyer's voice cut through the speaker, calm and professional. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen, what you've done constitutes fraud. You've made unauthorized modifications to a property you don't own, using permits obtained under false pretenses. Ms. Rivera has grounds for both civil and criminal action." The room went silent. I watched the color drain from their faces as the reality set in. "However," my lawyer continued, "Ms. Rivera is willing to discuss options that don't involve legal action." I'd spent hours on the phone with him earlier, working through the possibilities. The renovations, while unauthorized, had genuinely increased the property value. A full legal battle would be expensive and time-consuming, but I couldn't let them get away with this either. "Option 1, I said, my voice steady now. "You sign a lease immediately. Market rate for a newly renovated unit in this neighborhood is $3,500 a month. You'll pay that going forward, plus a security deposit." Marcus laughed, but it was hollow. "Elena, you know we can't afford that." "Then option 2, I'll sell you the unit. Based on the current market value with the renovations you've made, that's $450,000. I'll give you the family discount. Let's call it $400,000. "You're insane," Sophia whispered. "No," I said. "I'm done being taken advantage of. You made a calculated decision to renovate my property without my consent, expecting I'd roll over and pay for it. You gambled and lost. We're family." Marcus stood up, his face red. "How can you do this to family? How can you?" I shot back. "How can you live off my generosity for 5 years and then try to manipulate me into paying for your scheme? How can you look me in the eye and pretend this was anything other than a calculated attempt to steal from me?" The meeting ended with their promise to think about their options. But I knew what would happen. They couldn't afford the rent. They couldn't afford to buy. Their only choice was to leave. The next few weeks were brutal. My mother called daily, screaming about family loyalty, about how I was throwing my brother out on the street. Other relatives picked sides. I was the villain. In their narrative, the heartless sister who chose money over blood. But I held firm. Ryan stood by me, a steady presence when the family drama threatened to overwhelm. My lawyer handled the formal eviction process, 30 days notice, everything by the book. Marcus and Sophia tried everything, tears, anger, guilt. They even tried to claim tenant rights, arguing that 5 years of residency gave them some ownership stake. My lawyer shut that down quickly. They'd never paid rent, never had a lease. They were guests who had long overstayed their welcome. The day they moved out was anticlimactic. They'd already taken everything that wasn't nailed down, including some fixtures that technically should have stayed. I let it go. I just wanted them gone. I stood in the empty unit afterward, running my hand over the granite countertops they'd chosen, admiring the hardwood floors they'd installed. It was beautiful. It was exactly how I would have renovated it myself if I'd had the money. But it was tainted now, every improvement a reminder of their betrayal. Marcus and I haven't spoken since. My mother still brings him up every time we talk, how he's struggling, how he and Sophia are living in a tiny apartment, how it's all my fault. I've learned to change the subject. Some wounds don't heal. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. I did eventually sell the duplex. The renovated unit helped me get top dollar, enough to put a substantial down payment on the house with Ryan. We're getting married next month. Marcus wasn't invited. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh. If I should have found a middle ground, some compromise that kept the family together. But then I remember the contractor's face when he realized he'd been lied to. I remember the permitting, fraud. I remember Sophia's smug certainty that I'd pay for their scheme. They didn't make a mistake. They made a choice, a series of choices actually, over 5 years. To take advantage, to lie, to manipulate, to betray. I made a choice too, to stand up for myself, to refuse to be a victim, to value my own worth over family members who clearly didn't value me. Looking back, I realized the phone call at 2 a.m. wasn't the beginning of this story. It was the end of something else. The end of my naivety, the end of my blind trust in family, the end of my willingness to sacrifice myself for people who saw my kindness as weakness. But it was also a beginning. The beginning of boundaries, the beginning of self-respect, the beginning of a life where I choose who deserves my generosity and who doesn't. The renovated duplex sold to a young couple who reminded me of Ryan and myself, eager, ambitious, ready to build something together. They love the unit Marcus and Sophia renovated. They have no idea of its history, the family drama embedded in its walls. To them, it's just a beautiful space full of possibility, and maybe that's the best ending I could hope for. Something built on lies and manipulation, transformed into a genuine home for people who deserve it. A reminder that even our worst experiences can become someone else's fresh start. I still work at the hospital. I still save carefully, invest wisely. But now I do it for myself and for the family I'm choosing to build with Ryan. The family that respects me, values me, and would never see my kindness as an opportunity to take advantage. Marcus was wrong about one thing. Family doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Family doesn't mean sacrificing your future for someone else's comfort. Real family, the kind worth keeping, would never ask you to. The house Ryan and I bought has a small guest room. We've hosted friends, his parents, my cousins from my father's side. But there's an unspoken rule. No one stays for more than a week. No one lives rent-free. And everyone understands that our home is our sanctuary, not a safety net for poor life choices. Some might call me hardened. I prefer to think of myself as educated. 5 years was a long lesson, but I learned it well. Generosity without boundaries isn't generosity, it's enablement. And love without respect isn't love, it's manipulation. The last I heard through the family grapevine, Marcus and Sophia were still blaming me for their situation, still telling anyone who would listen how I'd thrown them out after they'd improved my property, still painting themselves as victims of my greed. Let them, I know the truth, and more importantly, I know my worth. That's the real renovation that came out of those 5 years. Not the granite countertops or hardwood floors, but the steel backbone I developed, the boundaries I built, the self-respect I claimed. Sometimes the most important thing family can teach you is when to walk away, when to say enough, when to choose yourself. I chose myself, and I'd do it again. There's an epilogue to this story that I think about sometimes, usually late at night when Ryan's sleeping beside me and I can hear the quiet hum of our life together. 6 months after the duplex sold, I got a call from the contractor who'd done the renovations. He was being sued by Marcus and Sophia for breach of contract. They claimed he'd overcharged them, done shoddy work, taken advantage of their trust. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were trying the same scam on him, hoping for a settlement, hoping he'd pay to make the problem go away. But he was smarter than I'd been. He had documentation, signed contracts, proof that they'd represented themselves as the property owners. He was countersuing for fraud and defamation. He asked if I'd be willing to provide a statement about what had happened, about how they'd lied about owning the property, how they'd tried to manipulate me into paying for the renovations. I said yes without hesitation. The legal proceedings were slow, but justice has a way of catching up. Marcus and Sophia not only lost their case against the contractor, but they were ordered to pay his legal fees. The fraud charges were forwarded to the district attorney. Last I heard, they were negotiating a plea deal to avoid jail time. My mother stopped calling after that. The family narrative couldn't sustain itself against legal documentation and court records. It's hard to paint someone as the villain when there's proof of who really committed fraud. I found peace in that silence. No more guilt trips, no more manipulative phone calls, no more family gatherings where I had to pretend everything was fine while Marcus told his version of events to sympathetic relatives. The price of that peace was high. Losing my mother, being ostracized by half my extended family. But it was worth it. Ryan and I got married in a small ceremony with just our closest friends and his family. My father's sister came, the one relative who'd seen through Marcus's manipulations from the beginning. "You did the right thing," she whispered during the reception. Sometimes doing the right thing means being the bad guy in someone else's story. We've been in our house for 2 years now. It's nothing fancy, but it's ours. Every payment we make is an investment in our future together. We have a real partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals. No one's taking advantage of anyone. No one's scheming behind the other's back. I still work my shifts at the hospital, but I've been promoted to charge nurse. The extra income goes into our investment account. We're saving for rental properties again, but this time I know better. Every tenant will have a lease. Every rent payment will be documented. Every boundary will be enforced from day one. Sometimes, I run into people who knew Marcus and me growing up. They always ask how he's doing, their eyes full of curiosity about our estrangement. I've learned to give a polite non-answer and change the subject. The full story isn't for casual acquaintances. It's mine to share or keep as I choose. But here's what I wish I could tell them. I'm not the villain in this story. I'm not the heartless sister who threw her brother out on the street. I'm the woman who worked double shifts to buy a property, who sacrificed to build something of her own, who opened her home and heart to family in need. I'm the woman who gave and gave until there was nothing left to give, and when I finally asked for basic respect, I was branded selfish. I'm also the woman who learned that family isn't a free pass to exploit someone's kindness. That blood relation doesn't entitle anyone to the fruits of your labor, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. The guest room in our house has seen many visitors, but it has rules, clear, non-negotiable rules, and every person who stays respects them because that's what people do when they actually care about you. They respect your boundaries. They appreciate your generosity. They don't see your kindness as an opportunity. 5 years. That's how long it took me to learn one of life's most important lessons. But I'm grateful for it now. Grateful for the clarity it brought. Because of Marcus and Sophia's betrayal, I know exactly who I am and what I'm worth. I know the difference between helping and enabling. I know that self-respect isn't selfish, and I know that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well, surrounded by people who truly love you, building a life that no one can take away because you were smart enough to protect it from the beginning. My brother and his wife lived in my house rent-free for 5 years. They secretly did a 100K renovation and demanded I pay. Their jaws dropped when I told them my decision. But the real shock was mine, discovering that family could betray you so completely while looking you in the eye and calling it love. That chapter of my life is closed now. And unlike the house they renovated without my permission, I'm the only one who gets to decide what comes next.